Hello. Hello, everyone. I saw some of you have tuned in already. I'm just testing the device to see if you can hear me right. Oh, I think I can hear echo on my side, so I'm going to try to fix my output. Trying to test if I still can hear echo on my side. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Oh, thank you. Oh, thanks for tuning in early. Can you guys tell me where you're from in the chat? I saw lots of you from YouTube and some of you from LinkedIn. So for those of you from LinkedIn, if you want to type some command, you can go to the YouTube stream. Or just, yeah, you can, so on the left side or right side of your screen, you can see 3 QR code. And for the bottom one, you can ask questions in case we miss questions during the live. And I'm gonna put someone on screen to test if it works with someone. Hey.
Hello.
Hey, do you want to just, introduce yourself and we can test the audio if that works before we start?
Hello. I am Nivedita.
Sorry, I think something wrong with my output. I couldn't hear you. I need to fix it. Give me a sec. Thank you. Hey, can you
hear me now?
I guess I still couldn't hear you. Give me a sec. Hello?
Hello. Hi.
Okay. Yeah, I think it works now.
I think we're about to go live in like 2 minutes. So yay!
Yes, finally it works. I'm gonna put a countdown before we officially start.
Okay.
Like, okay. Ops. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our resume clinic today. I'm gonna introduce guest here. Give me a sec. Hi. So, thank you everyone for coming here for resume today. Let's say hi to. Let me check the comments. Hello, everyone. Just let me know where you're from on the chat so that, and feel free to put questions anytime in the chat, and we will have a Q&A session at the very end to check all the questions, and we'll also answer questions during the session if answer some quick question. And can you guys introduce yourself? Let's start with Alex.
No, everyone. So I've worked as a software engineer at a lot of big tech companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. I'm currently based in Seattle, and I guess maybe something I like to do for fun is I've been trying a lot more, trying to get better at cooking. So that's been a challenge for me, but it's something I'm trying to get better at.
What you like to cook?
I'm trying. I think right now I've been trying to make some like baked salmon. Learning how to make some fish right now.
Cool. Thanks. Thanks, Casey. Do you want to go next?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey everyone, my name is Casey Fu. I've started my career at Microsoft in the Redmond headquarters. I worked there on the Bing platform team for about 2 years before coming back up to Vancouver. I originally graduated from the University of Waterloo. I have co-opted at various different large tech companies, but Microsoft was my kind of big tech company that I kind of gotten a really good big head start with in my career. After that, I've come back up to Vancouver, so that's where I'm mainly based now. I'm working at an enterprise software company called PlanView as their product lead for an AI co-pilot, so that's been super fun. But on the side, I like to write a lot. Writing newsletters, blogs, and I have currently started my second book. I have published a previous book before on like a fiction title, and so if you're ever interested in writing, please feel free to reach out to me.
So you like writing as your hobby?
Yeah,
Cool.
you could say that.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jeffrey. I currently work at Amazon as a software development engineer in Alexa. Previously, I interned at Samsung as a backend developer and then at SAP as a technical project coordinator. Something fun about me is I've done a lot of hackathons. I've done like 7 hackathons. I've judged a couple. I've organized a couple. So a bit stir crazy here, but having a lot of fun.
Cool. So you like hackathon?
Yeah, love them a lot.
Thank you for. So now let's go to Navi.
Hello, everyone. I guess I'm the only hardware engineer in this panel. So, a great shout out to all the hardware engineers who have joined us. Hi, I'm Nivedita Kaur. I started my career as a space scientist at Indian Space Research Organization, which, for people who don't know ISRO, it's basically NASA of India. Um, um, I worked there for 5 years, and then I came to US for my master's in computer engineering, and after that I joined Meta. So I'm currently at Meta. I'm working on developing AR glasses. They are not out yet, but maybe soon, maybe not. Um, Apart from my work at Meta, I also don a couple of other hats. Like I'm a lead mentor at Techstars. I mentor space startups there. And my current startup that I'm mentoring is Samara Aerospace. I am vice chair of one of the industry standards, which is called VESA, which basically works on different compression algorithms. And I'm a Women Techmaker Ambassador, which is a Google initiative for empowering women in tech. And I also do one-on-one mentorship if I feel that I can help the mentee. So feel free to reach out if you're interested in that. Fun fact about myself. I, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say we're gonna add everyone's linking later on, so that if anyone want to connect with you,
Okay,
I'm gonna
thanks.
sorry. Yeah.
Fun fact, I did not like fiction novels, but I developed a recent interest in that. So currently, I'm reading this book, which is called Less. It is about an author, and it's supposed to be funny, but I don't find it funny yet. But let's see. That's
Cool.
it about me. Thanks, Annie.
Thanks for introducing yourself. And I saw a lot of people like coming from all around the world, like some from New York, some from Vancouver, um, some from South Africa. Thank you so much for coming supporting this event. And while I listening to your introduction, I saw someone asking in the chat. Maybe this is a question for Casey that, they're asking why you not working Microsoft. Maybe you can quickly answer that.
Yeah, of course. There are certain aspects of product management. So I think I may be a little bit more different from everyone else here because I kind of always wanted to start my career in product management because, I come from a little bit of a non-traditional background. So when I was trying to get into tech, product management was that kind of next adjacent piece that I wanted to go into through the front door. That proved to be, obviously challenging, but eventually when I did get my first product management early career role at Microsoft, you learn that you touch various aspects of product management instead of the entire kind of end-to-end experience, and that's very, very true for like a lot of different product management roles in the industry nowadays. So after about 2 years, I got enough experience to the point where I realized, I could continue climbing the learning curve, and there was a lot of stuff for me left over for me to still learn, or I could kind of try going elsewhere and focus on something that I felt like I wasn't touching as much as I was at Microsoft. Because even at Microsoft, depending on the team, you're doing something incredibly different as a PM compared to someone else within a different team. So I realized to myself that either I could potentially jump teams in order to learn a little bit more, find something I feel like I was a little bit more of a better fit for. Because at my previous role within the Bing team, I was doing a little bit more, I would say like a little bit more TPM work, so technical program management work. And with more and more years of experience and more years of knowledge, you get to work on more of the strategy stuff, which is the stuff that I really wanted to touch on more. So I felt like after 2 years. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I feel like, maybe we can have more time to talk about your story later on. Like maybe you can just give us one sentence to summarize what's the biggest reason. Is that?
Oh yeah, I want to touch different aspects of my product management experience, and that's why I wanted to move.
Well, that's so cool. Thanks for sharing your experience. And hello, everyone from New Jersey, Vernon. Thanks to everyone for coming. Any questions? Except for questions, that's a really great question for Casey's journey. Anyone are curious about our guest for when you hear their fun fact or their experience? If not, I'm gonna maybe quickly introduce myself. And while waiting for your response, so I'm Annie. I'm currently working at Google as a software engineer and also internal career coach. I'm really passionate about helping people, and I really like playing music as a hobby. So that's a fun fact about me. Yeah, I'm gonna wait for a minute or two to see more questions. So you can either scan QR code on the top and then put your questions in Slido, or just put your question on the chat. I'm gonna pick one question before we start the resume demo part. So I'm looking at the question that you guys submit by scanning this QR code. I'm gonna pick one. Okay, so someone asked, should my resume only be one page? If so, is it okay to do 2 columns? Any of you wanna share your experience on that? Or maybe I'll just point. Alex, do you wanna share your experience on that?
Yeah, maybe we can all take turns answering this. Well, I think we'll see later that my resume is personally 1 page. I think for me, it's been a lot easier and cleaner just to keep everything formatted as a single page. In my experience, I haven't seen as many 2-column formatted resumes as I have 1-column formatted resumes. So for me personally, I do like the single column format.
Oh, you like single column. Thanks for sharing. But you will see, for the people who ask a question, you will see later on when everyone demo their resume, so you can see how different. And maybe we can come back to this question at the very end and see how you feel about this. Right? Thanks, Alice, for sharing your experience. I saw in the chat someone asking Navi a question that what's your motivation to pursue master in computer science after working in ISRO? Do you want to briefly answer the question in a few sentences?
Sure. So I was a digital designer at ISRO, where I was working all the way from microarchitecture when your silicon chip is delivered, but I wanted to expand my horizon on in industry what happens in terms of architecture, just one level up from microarchitecture. Let's say if I've been given specs on build this hardware for this application for AR classes, so I didn't have that expertise then. Like, how do I manage the architecture? So that was my motivation to pursue masters in computer engineering.
Oh, you
But
want to learn more about architecture?
sorry. Yes,
Oh,
I wanted to
sorry.
learn more about architecture. Yes.
Cool. I hope that answers the question for someone who asked a question. If you want to learn more about her journey, I think you can connect on LinkedIn. She would love to share her story. And I also have a podcast with her. I'm gonna release it sometimes next month. So yeah, she will also share her story there. Thanks for answering the question. And hello, someone from Boston. Hello, someone from India. Hello, everyone from all around the world. Okay, I have one last question before we start resume demo. Okay. Someone asked, oh, how we start as a beginner for FAANG level preparation. Like, I'm currently studying computer science. Are you a student? Jeffrey, do you want to give a quick?
Sure. So I guess step one is learn from people who have gone through the process. So you're in the right place here. We're going to be here to help. We're going to take you through some of the steps for how to get that resume in shape, how to get it
Yes.
attractive to recruiters, and maybe also talk about some of the experiences that you might want to work on over the next couple of years in order to build that portfolio, build your skills, and make yourself a versatile but also very experienced fit for FAANG companies. So a lot to delve into today.
Yeah, we were gonna definitely share like why we work through the resume. We're definitely gonna explore those topics again. Yeah, thanks for sharing your insight. I saw someone from Brazil. Hello. Yeah, I have some more questions coming. And also, yeah, let me check the Slido. Yeah, some more questions, but we can definitely go back to them in the Q&A session. If you think you really want to ask your question and but your question is missed in the live chat, you can just ask question by scan the QR code. Ask questions. Like this is the very bottom QR code that you can ask questions there. Yeah, we have really good question here. Oh, we're gonna get back to them. I promise. Let's just now like go to a very interesting part. Like, what is the resume that get those people to big tech? Like, so now let's review the secret. So I'm gonna start from Casey. I'm gonna put you in the stage and then release your resume. I'm gonna put someone. Okay. So what is a resume that get Casey to a Microsoft PM role as a new grad? Is that a new grad at that time?
Yep.
Okay. Let me put it on the screen. This is the one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you walk through what is how you like craft this resume to share your mindset with everyone who's watching the live?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm a fan of color, obviously. So, from a design perspective, I want to just make it easy to read, keep it to one page only, simply because, we're all students, right? Or we're relatively early new grads. So, it makes sense to kind of just shove all your experience into one page. I figured, obviously, with the kind of traditional template you have on the educational side, you have, education, your skills, especially from a tech point of view, you have all those tech skills that you have, and then some community or volunteering experience, right? That you obviously want to showcase to show how involved you are from just outside of work and school. The main piece with the experience is coming from a product management perspective. Obviously, one of the biggest things to me is when you're going through all the different bullet points for, for example, your tech experience, whether you're a software engineer or product manager, always try to focus on the impact that you made. So what I really try to do here is obviously try to make my thing go from chronological order, but one of the other things I try to do is actually link the various different products I worked on. or at least try to link various demos that I worked on, so that in PDF format, whoever's reading my resume can actually click in and even get a chance to like demo or just look at what exactly product I was working on, what team I was working in. So that's one thing. And then second thing is just, attach that kind of impact that I made specifically with those various different with those various different products, or even just various different teams, whatever way I was able to do it best, that I was at least able to kind of talk and provide evidence on that I made that impact, that I felt most comfortable. That was what I included. So I was very lucky to get to work on a lot of different co-ops when I was studying at the University of Waterloo. So that's what allowed me to kind of fill this resume up.
Thanks. I saw you highlight some number here. Can you share when like why you highlight the number? Like why not you highlight the skill set, or like what is the mindset when you highlight?
Yeah. I think from a software engineering perspective, you may want to focus a little bit more on highlighting the skill set, simply because obviously that's what you're really getting hired for, as well as your mindset. For me, I wanted to focus a little bit more on just the impact, because previous mentors have told me, at least, that as a PM, it's hard. It's very easy for you to describe what you did, but it's not as not as easy to describe exactly how that translated into actual business impact. And that's what's most important for companies hiring PMs, is what type of business impact they can make right away, so we know for a fact that you can actually add value. From the product manager role, specifically because you're diving into so many different domains and you're talking to so many people, and your impact can really, really get blurred pretty easily. This is the one thing that you want to really make sure that you hammer down on, and showcase that impact is a little bit more important, just so it proves to you that what you did, how you did it, is also there.
Yeah. Oh, I saw someone in the chat asking, how do you get so many co-op internship? Like, yeah, I saw your background is in science and business, minor in economics, and you got so many good co-op experience that probably is very helpful for you to get Microsoft PM as a new grad role. So how do you get those co-op internship?
Yeah, so I've started my science and business program at the University of Waterloo, originally thinking that I wanted to go down the science path. So my program allows you to either kind of go down a bunch of science co-ops or a bunch of business co-ops. But obviously, as you can kind of see, you don't get that as much technical experience or educational experience from a classroom perspective. So what I ended up doing is kind of learning a lot of development and some software engineering skills on the side, through various different online courses, Coursera, Udemy, and all that sort of stuff. And then after that, I landed my first ever co-op job at BlackBerry. Through BlackBerry, I think I was able to really kind of get more exposed to the various different tech roles out there, besides just the traditional software engineering role. And that made me realize that there were so many roles within the business domain out there that allowed me to really feel like I made the best fit. And that's why eventually I discovered product management was the best fit for me. And that's why I kind of went all in on trying to get my product management experience in the door. So that's kind of the reason why. And that's obviously, not as much to do with science at all. Science to me is a little bit more of it's really great for me to learn through the classroom, but really co-op and trying to focus on getting those co-ops and learning a bunch of tech skills on the side during those semesters was how I really got it.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. I saw someone ask a very interesting question that not including dates. I think I removed that because I want to protect privacy for people's resume. That's a very interesting question. I also have another resume from Casey. Casey, you may not know this. I have two resumes that you gave it to me. I have another resume that after you leaving Microsoft, you have a different resume, right? So
Yep.
I want to show that resume, and then you can tell us why you made certain change. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So
sure.
This is a new resume after you leave Microsoft. This is the original one, and I noticed that you remove one co-op experience and remove a lot of SAP co-op experience. I wonder why you make such change. I saw you have seems like the experience part that you changed quite a lot.
Yeah, so really you kind of got me there. I got to really explain myself now. it makes to me it made a lot of sense to focus in on what was what experiences I could talk to, especially not just on a resume, but also if I get picked for an interview, right? And the interviewer wants to walk through the entire resume with me, then I have to be there to really be able to respond articulately and also provide actual technical experience and evidence that the impact I made was the impact I made. So one of the reasons why I kind of filled almost half this entire page with just Microsoft experience, and kind of sacrificed a little few bullet points here and there to really make up for that Microsoft experience, because I prioritized the bullet points that I could talk to the best, as well as that I felt like was kind of like almost the bread and butter of what I was working on, so that I could almost talk about how I made that impact and the technical experience that allowed me to make that impact. So that is why.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience. I'm gonna pay attention to the live chat right now. Anyone has your question for this resume before we go to next one? I'm gonna wait for a minute and see. Like just for resume, just for Casey. We will answer some general question at the Q&A session. Okay, I'll wait for more question. Someone asked, how did you decide the order of contents in your resume? Do you want to quickly answer that?
Yeah, so I kind of simplified it for myself and tried to make a chronological order. It's not exactly the most chronological order in the sense that it's going to literally be like one experience, previous experience, next previous experience. I went chronological order, but I also only handpicked the experiences that was related to PM and AI and technology and whatever else. So if there's any sort of experience I've done in between these, all the stuff that you see on the resume, I may or may not have filtered that out, simply because I'm trying to like filter only for the product management stuff and then put it in chronological order.
I saw there's some comments about the 2-column resume does not pass ATS. I think there's some online ATS tool that you can submit your resume and then check whether it can pass or not. I think someone else also asked a question that resume like this way don't pass ATS. I think it's better to check with the tool. Someone also asked, should we add hyperlink? That question, maybe we can go to the later section that have a recruiter, like HR director, that's probably gonna have more expertise on that. But yeah, anyone, like if Casey, you wanna, if you have any insight, you can also share. I'm gonna just quickly reviewing the comments before we go to next resume. Yeah. So thanks everyone for the question. If you think you really want to ask your question again, you can scan the QR code, and I'm gonna review the question and then put it in the Q&A session. So thanks, Casey. I'm gonna move you from stage. Bye for now. And next one, let's introduce Alex. Hi, Alex.
Everyone.
Okay. I'm gonna put your resume on stage, the resume that you got into Google.
Yeah. So this is going to be more of like a mid-level type of career transition. So I want to start off by saying this resume helped a lot, where it got me from like a junior level position promoted to kind of like a mid-level position when I kind of transitioned to Google with this. Yeah. So I do recognize like there is like some wealth of like big tech experience here, but I do want to talk a little bit about like the format and some kind of the resume choices I thought about when I was writing this. So I think the first thing we can see that it is single column formatted. For me, I will be honest, there wasn't a lot of thought put into it. The way it was explained to me by a recruiter is that they do see a lot of resumes, but the ones that are a little too creative might be a little bit hard on the eyes. So I wanted to go for something that was a little bit simpler. And the way I thought about structuring it was you do put your most important experiences on top, chronological order, very similar to our previous guest. And then I would start each bullet point talking about the impact. And I think this is very different from what I would do as a new grad. Whereas a new grad, I would talk a lot more about my technologies and my engineering skills. But as I was trying to go towards more of a promoted role, I think I wanted to highlight more of like the impact and the skills and more of the important like responsibilities I had for that next level role that I was applying for. I don't know if we have any more questions, but yeah, so the way I kind of structured it more for more of an experience role is the experience. And then I would go into a little bit more about like the engineering skills, but not highlight that as much. And then I think something a lot of people will also notice is that I moved the education down to the bottom. For me, I did notice that education became less relevant as your most recent work experience becomes more relevant. So I did have to move that back down there. But I still do keep it down there too for anyone that does ask if I have a bachelor's degree.
Thanks for sharing it. I think there's a very interesting point that you mentioned that for experienced hire, it's different from new grad that you put a lot of emphasis on the impact. And I saw there are a lot of number and matrix on it. So I have a question that, for people who just work in the industry, sometimes like myself, my first work as an internship or a new grad, I didn't know too much about what is the impact. I just, at that time, like 5 years ago, when I first started my job, I just want to learn the technology and get things done. I didn't have the connection about, this is the impact. I don't know the matrix. I don't know, how to check the matrix. I don't have at that time, I didn't even check with my manager to ask, how do I know when to find those metrics? So how do you want to share your experience on how do you gather those impact, like gather those like have a quantified, measurable impact on your achievement? Yeah.
So for a lot of people working in the engineering field, I'm sure they have to interact with some type of product manager. And they usually draft some type of document, like a product requirements document. And I would actually read that and understand, like, why are we building this? What's important about building this? And they would actually put the numbers in there for me. Like, this is going to impact half our users. This is going to bring in like $1 billion of revenue. And I would actually just read that and then put that on my resume. And it's totally fine that I worked on something that was working towards that. I think that shows that people consider the higher level or the bigger picture a little bit more. So that's how people can actually like leverage those numbers there. The other type of impact metric is like engineering impact. In those, I think people tend to have to be a little bit more creative about where these numbers come from. So did you reduce latency by 50%? That could be like trying to measure like how long something takes and then remembering like how you improve that. And then you can estimate like the number that you put on here. So engineering impact is a little bit harder to estimate, but you can also think a little bit more about it as you work with it. And you can also use those numbers on there.
Thank you. I saw a lot of people curious about what is the resume you look like when you get into Amazon. And did you have many internships? Like, do you have I don't think I have your resume that you get you to Amazon. Like, do you, at that time, do you have a lot of internship experience or your first ever job is Amazon?
Yeah, so Amazon was my first ever job. I did not have any internship experience.
How do you
I don't know how much time we have. But, one reason was I switched my major a few times. So I did think about trying to be in pre-med, thinking about med school. But then I switched over to computer science like late into my junior year. And then I don't think there was a lot of time for me to apply for a lot of internship roles. What my resume did look like before, you can imagine just like cutting out the experience part and just having like 2 more like side projects. The projects that I had there were actually a lot of like in-class projects. So I used to feel bad that I would put projects here that were either unfinished or in class. I learned what really matters at the end of the day is, do you actually know how to use these technologies, right? It's less important that it was actually finished, and it's less important that it was whether in class or like on your own time. So I did list a few of those things on my project.
Thank you. That's so interesting that how you get your first job in Amazon by having the school project and listed. And like the fact that you can get a job after switching, like get a job at Amazon after switching different major. That's very interesting. Maybe you can share more about it at the very end. Thank you so much. We will go to the next one. So I will going to remove this for now. Bye, and Alex, for now. I'll see you later soon. Yeah, for those of you your question couldn't get answered, we can go back to the meta Q&A session at the very end. Navi, I'm gonna put your resume here.
Hello, Annie. Thanks for having me. And hello, everyone who are joining us on a Saturday morning. Okay, so this is my resume before I joined Meta. So I was a new grad student. Um, my main focus is always on the projects and my work experience because that is what something can give my interviewer more insights into what I have worked on hands on. So that's I felt as a hardware engineer, my work experience and research projects were very important. So I added my work ex before because I worked as a hardware engineer for 5 years, and that was a continue. And then my master's was a continuation of that. So you become a design engineer. You can also become an architect directly, but that's how my journey was. So I wanted to share more on what satellites I worked on, what I exactly built. So one of my main, even in that, in a work experience, you don't, at least that's my preference, I don't prefer to go in a chronological order, at least in terms of work experience. So let's say I worked for 5 years, but my main focus and my main project was the first one that I mentioned, ccsds compression. So that was a compression technique I developed and I implemented in satellite module that would reduce transmission bandwidth when the satellite sends data from space to ground, right? So that's very impactful. That shows that I am familiar with, let's say, how the processing is done, how hardware is built, and what impact does it has. Now, apart from that, I became project manager while I was doing that. So that's my next one. So these are not in chronological order, right? And then I mentioned my other projects that I worked in my work ex. Now, coming to my next point, research projects. So, as a new undergrad or a new grad student, I feel research projects also carry a lot of weightage when it comes to resumes because you might not be aware of what your interviewer is looking for. Is he hiring you for your work ex, or is he hiring you for your master's degree, right? So that's where I took my sweet space to mention clearly about my master's project. So you can see that I have L1 L2 cache simulator, branch prediction simulator. And just to mention a fact here, my first project was, my meta interviewer was very impressed with my first project, my first research project, and that was that he used that as a base for my main interview question. So he asked me to build a cache simulator. Of course, they were not of same configuration, it was much more difficult, but I was prepared with the base. Okay, I knew what a cache simulator is, I knew what configurations it might happen. So clearly specify your research projects. Now, apart from that, I also, I think while I applied this, I didn't have my final GPA, so I didn't mention that here. Um, but if your GPA is good, that also matters a lot. So I had a 4 on 4 GPA, which I was able to share at during my interview. So that acted in my support as well. Now, apart from that, adding courseworks is fine because sometimes people are looking for a very specific skill set. Now, for all the audience here in um, North America, I think it also matters somewhere in other countries as well. But from the culture that I've seen here, your capability to work cross functionally between teams, how collaborative you are, that also matters. So if you have done any work on that, please mention that as well. Now, if you have some papers, if you are part of some conferences, so you can see that. I was a part of a campaign between NASA and ISRO. So, and I was one of the people leading that. So I mentioned that I was a part of Avis NG Airborne. Um, and then I was also, A reviewer of IEEE
Yeah.
communication letter.
Do you want to quickly answer this question? I think this is a question for you. Is this a resume just for Meta or just for all the application?
So I tune my so I whenever you go for interviews, you sometimes you would have different level of companies sorted in an order, right? So for me, there were some where I just wanted to interview to practice interview, and there were some where they were safe jobs for me, but then there were some for ambitious, right? So this one was for Meta, and I tailored it as per their needs because I wanted to focus more on my research projects, so I increased space for that. But if I'm applying for just to have an experience for interview, I don't cater like for every specific job.
I see. I saw someone also have a question about how do you got a job in DRDO?
I worked at ISRO, so DRDO is different and ISRO is different, but both are for uh, DRDO is for defense, like your airborne jets. For ISRO, I graduated from IIST, which is a college of ISRO, and you get it into that through IIT.
Mm, Thanks for answering. I think someone probably curious about hardware project that you're doing.
Oh, yes, definitely. I think if you are not in masters, you can play with Raspberry Pis that I played a lot. So you can buy small kits like Raspberry Pi or Arduino boards. I can feel free to contact me on LinkedIn and I can give you other ideas. But yes, there are a lot of readily available hardware kits available. You can do some LED projects. And now that using AI, there are so many things happening. I saw a project the other day where someone was using a hardware kit to control how much water is there in my plants. He built a whole pipeline for that. So yes, there are so many things you can do even for hardware.
Yeah. When you talk about AI, I think someone previously mentioned about, oh, have you ever leveraged AI tool for resume building?
I think Annie is expert in that. So Annie, I'll let you take that question.
Oh, yeah, I try to, I did have some session for how to use AI to write some prompt to write resume, but maybe we can talk about it later. For your demo, trying any questions? I saw someone about, yeah, this is a question. Is it proper to include your volunteer?
Of course, yes, please do that, but keep it very short. And also, it's on you how to assess how impactful that is, right? So you can see I volunteered in this Everest NG Airborne campaign team, right? So I did because I knew that the NASA JPL and ISRO collaboration is very impactful. So I did mention that. Now, I also wanted to mention it's very difficult when it comes to mention your impact when it comes to hardware engineers, right? And I think Alex did touch upon that. Like you can mention your latency numbers, you can as a software engineer you can also mention how many platforms you built, what platforms you built, how it helped, but you can it's not always necessary to quantify impact. You can also express it in terms of the technical challenges that you overcame when you were working on some project, or how you developed a novel algorithm to solve something and you just got your paper on that, or it collaborated, it's on GitHub, anywhere. Or worst thing, not worst thing, but like a basic thing, right? Your contribution streamlined the development process for your entire team. So, or you bridged a gap between two teams, and that helped in completion of this projects. So these are also very impactful things that you should mention in your resumes.
Mm,
But
yes.
before I end, there is one basic thing I would like to mention. There are a lot of people who reached out to me on LinkedIn to help them with their resumes. And like I said, I do love to help. Um, but some people have their photos on LinkedIn, on their resumes. Don't do that. Some people have different fonts for names, different fonts for your email IDs, different fonts phone numbers, they have emoticons in your resumes. Please, please, please don't do that. Keep it simple, keep it very basic. When I see your resume, or when any interviewer sees your resume, his eyes should go on your projects, on your experience, not on these fancy things. They should not be in your resumes. I really want to emphasize this, because as a grad student, I did not know the importance of these things. I did not know, like, keep it simple, how important it can be. So please, please make sure you do that.
Yeah, it's very important to have a good format, and so that the recruiter can, like, when they scan your resume, they directly go to your experience and they know what's the
Yes,
important things, and it's
correct.
not recommended to be too creative in
Exactly. Your
tag.
resume is not the place to be creative, trust me. And you can see, I don't have a preference on two column or one column. I don't think it matters. But as a new undergrad, I wanted to emphasize on more on my projects than my coursework and education and skills, so I kept it this way. But if you see my resume now, Annie, do you have the other one available?
Yeah, but we probably have 1 minute left.
Yes, I'll just briefly. So you can see I switched from, and this is, I'm mentioning this for people who are trying to switch jobs, right? So now my resume looks like this, because I want to include an objective, a 3 line, 4 line simple brief objective, because I'm a vice chair of a standard that I really want the interviewer to know. I'm a Techstar mentors. So these are things that have been added as an industry expert in my resume now. So I switched from two column to one column.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Oh, the style changed quite a lot. You changed from two column, like this
To
kind
one
of the
column.
colorful format, to this very simple, more like academic feel.
Yes. And yes, like I said, if you have a good resume, sorry, good CGPA, do mention that. That also makes a difference. So you can see how I'm boasting my CGPA 4 on 4 here. You can go back, Annie.
Oh, yeah, yeah, CGP 4 out of 4. Yeah, wow.
So yes, don't forget to mention that as well.
Thank you so much. I think because of the time, we're probably gonna continue share the next person. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing this. Bye for now. I'll see you soon later. And now is Jeffrey.
Hi, everyone.
Um, let me, okay. Is this a resume that you get the job at Microsoft, at Amazon?
Yes, that's right. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you can see it's generally similar to the other resumes as well. Some things I want to highlight are um, I designed my resume very, very specifically for accessibility. And what I mean by that is I expect the recruiter to spend about 5 or 10 seconds, no more than that, reading my resume. I know they have hundreds of resumes to go through and not a lot of time. So I want them to be able to go through the resume in 5 seconds and understand that it does fit the job description. It does fulfill the things that they require. And so that's how I laid things out, right? Nivedita talked about balance before. I've worked really hard to make sure that work experience is up top and is comparable to projects. In this case, I wanted to emphasize a lot of my extracurricular experience and my leadership, which is why I have projects and hackathons and leadership as a large section, right? The first job out of university. Um, so I have, you know, a very, very significant work experience section with a lot of bullet points. I expect the recruiter to be drawn to that first. I've highlighted, bolded the pieces that are most relevant to the job description, and I've unbolded everything else. And I want them to really, really understand that, hey, I'm a great fit for this specific job description. Couple other things to add here. Again, I've added the column on the right. I've tested this with submitting this to companies and found that AWS, for example, the AWS ATS will accept this format and read my experience correctly. So I'm okay with that. What other things to mention? Yeah, one last thing to mention before we go to any questions is I started out doing, small little personal projects like implementing a linked list or an algorithm. but eventually I moved towards things that were more socially impactful, things that are interesting to even non-tech people, right? Because I wanted to be seen as a jack of all trades, someone who doesn't just care about making an algorithm really fast or doing lead code medium questions. I wanted to be portrayed as someone who cares about the business impact and about solving real problems in society. Um, yeah, yeah, and open-ending questions.
This daily ask great resume. What website did you use to build this one?
Yeah, thanks, Daily. I used Figma to build this. If you're experienced in Figma, if you've done it for design before, I'd recommend it. Great tool, free and everything. If you haven't used it before, I wouldn't recommend it. The learning curve is not simple. Go with the tried and tested methods of Google Docs or something. Make sure that it's still attractive and you're not using the default fonts. So Figma is not necessary. But I had a lot of time during the pandemic, so I spent some time overhauling the resume to look like this.
Someone, Wei Shay asked, did you modify a resume for this particular job?
I didn't. So every job that I apply to, I read through the job description a couple times and I pull out the exact bullet points. Let's say from a paragraph, let's say they want you to be a team player and a communicator, right? For example, if they have words like that, then I write those down and I make sure that my bullet points are ordered in a way that answer the job description as best as possible. I put in bullet points that are relevant and I take out bullet points that are irrelevant. Um, Again, accessibility, readability. I want my font to be this large. I don't want it to be any smaller. I don't want my margins to be any smaller. I don't want to overload a recruiter with information. I just want to show them the most relevant pieces and have it be easily readable.
Thank you. I think a lot of people are curious about your, your experience at project coordinator. I think I saw more than one question in the chat.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Thanks for asking.
started as the SAP technical
Yeah.
coordinator.
So for transparency, the SAP technical coordinator position is an intern position. I think I didn't have enough space to put it in there. Um, but it was an intern position for 8 months. Why did I go from tech to more of a project role? I think I'd done a lot of student leadership and team leadership, and I felt like, hey, tech is fun, but I want to be doing again more impactful things, higher level things. I want to be enabling people and mentoring people and making sure that they can achieve a lot more. And it was a really great experience. I learned a lot about project deadlines and managing people and making sure that we can really empower other people to do effective things. But at the end of the day, I went back to a software engineer position because I felt I wasn't technically strong enough and I wanted to gather my technical experience and come back as a technical manager or some other sort of leadership role rather than being a non-technical manager and sort of letting other people lead the tech that way.
Thank you. That's very interesting journey. Let me check live chat and to see if we have any interesting question. Everyone put GPA now. I would say it really depends. But what do you think?
The only reason I put CGPA there is because I have on our transcripts we have CGPA and we have computing science GPA, and they're both high enough that I was comfortable putting them both in. The GPA part is just hidden. If your GPA is high, put it in. If it's not high, ignore it. Don't put it in. It's not important for most recruiters. It's just a nice cherry on top. That's what I'd say.
I also saw a question in the someone put in the Slido that by scanning the QR code that about what font size is good. I feel like maybe that's a question for recruiter, but what is your personal experience?
So again, because I want them to be reading it in 5 or 10 seconds, I basically print out my resume and I hold it at arm's length and I go, is this quickly readable or do I need to zoom in and try and read everything with a microscope? I think I've gone with, I think this looks like 10 or 11. I think 11-point font. It really is up to you, depending on the font, depending on how you want your resume to look. But my preference is always larger, more readable than
Thank you.
instead of more content. Yeah.
I saw Zahara that you have this question about common mistake. I think we're gonna discuss some more good practice later on. But for a recommendation for platform, anyone like Jeffrey, maybe you have a suggestion. If not, we can go to the roundtable to discuss this.
I'm not sure what we mean by platform at the moment. Do you know
Yeah,
any?
like Figma.
Oh,
Or
Figma.
like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know there's some AI tool to you can build a resume in their AI tool, or you can just write it in
Got
Figma
it.
doc or LaTeX,
Yeah.
which is old fashioned.
I mean, I'll keep it quick. I think that the platform is not important. The important thing is, does the resume get across the information that you want it to, and is it reasonably attractive? You know, is it easy on the eyes? Is it easy to understand? Whatever tool you use, as long as it doesn't get in the way of you actually conveying your information, it'll be fine.
I have a very I'm not sure if that's I have a very interesting question. That you put your personal interest on the resume. You talk about you playing badminton. What do you think of this part?
Yeah, this was definitely like something I thought a lot about, and I'm still a little bit on the fence. But again, I think it's similar to the reason I keep such a large section for my extracurriculars and my leadership, is because I anyone can learn C++, but not everyone can be a team player. Not everyone can, be kind of the human being on the team. And I want to pitch myself that way. I want to pitch myself as the guy who's not just a nerd, but also a nerd who you can get along with. That's kind of why I left it there, but I've left it as a very small section. So
Yeah, I saw you. This is your latest resume you have that you also change your personal interest. It's very
yeah,
interesting. Fun fact I found from your resume.
yeah.
Let me check in the live chat if we have any. Do we have any question? Oh yeah, anyone has a suggestion for the platform? You can put in the chat to help Daddy answer this question. Thank you. Do you have anything to add before we go to the next part?
No, I think we're good. Let's move on. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. So I won't. So I'll keep everyone still here. I'll just move your for now. And so next part, we can do a live review of a resume that we got permission from this person. And you can protect their personal information here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm probably gonna ask questions, and for each of you can give some suggestion on what do you think of this person's resume. Alex, do you wanna start? Like
Sounds very quick.
any impression, like format wise, how they write this their experience, how they highlight their skills. Maybe you can give any insight.
Yeah. So I think for me personally, even whether I have like a little bit of corporate experience or not, I think it just depends on how far experienced we are. I do like to include some of my coursework and GPA if it's like above 3.5. What I felt was relevant in this coursework was if there was a class that was on iOS development, or if there was a class that was on front end or full stack development, parallel computing. Those things I felt like were still something that were still relevant. That shows that it might help me a little bit on like the ATS or showing off like how technical or what my education background was. I think here, it's like education is deprioritized, but I think cutting that out, I think is just a little too much. I think it does become even less relevant as you become like maybe a year or two out as a working professional. But here, I think they're just an intern, and I can't tell if they've graduated yet. But yeah, it doesn't hurt to still have that there is my one thing I would probably say.
It's a good point. Anyone want to share their anyone like our guest, anyone of you want to share your opinion? I can pin you to the stage. You can message me on the guest chat, and I can pin you to the stage. Maybe I'll add Nevi. Do you want to give some idea?
Please increase the font size or the make it a little bit darker. It's hard for me to read. I would suggest simple things like you mentioned, let's say, drove time sensitive Slack bot migration for developers. I would write it like led a project because you drove it. So write it, rather than writing drove, probably mention like you led this project. Um, and implemented Jared Voter Jenkins to perform validation. I would make it something like build a platform or write it in a way as in you implemented it, but what was the final outcome? I would rather mention it like this. Um, and again, same goes for developed a proof of work blockchain system. So I would mention it like again, like build something and what was the impact that you brought, right? Because I think
Mhm.
most of us are doing the same thing, but how our work is making a difference, that is one thing that makes you stand out as compared to others, and how you
Yeah.
express that impact. So that is, and I know a lot of people ask this question like how to stand out in this competitive job market. So how do you express your work? Because we all are technically in the same industry and doing similar kind of work, but how you express it, it matters.
Mm, oh, I saw someone in the comments asking about they also want to get resume review. Unfortunately, we probably don't have time this time. But if we have enough people interested, we can have another session to do a live review if you want. Um, thank you. So I guess now I'll try to put everyone to the stage. And
And I mean, sorry, one thing in the resume that you're sharing, I see the
Mhm.
education is mentioned in the last line. Probably they would want to bring it somewhere a little bit in the middle or on the top because that's important, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
education is very important that the recruiter need to know when you graduate.
Correct.
And I think last part you mentioned that everyone's doing the same thing, and I think it's very important to know whether it is your job responsibility or your achievement. When you actually talk about achievement, it is very a lot of detail about what tool you're using, how you do it, and what is the impact you achieved, and how do you describe this impact? What's the audience reach, and what is the measurable impact? So that can be your achievement and not just your responsibility.
Correct.
And yeah, now let's put everyone back to the stage. Hello, welcome to the stage again. I'll quickly go through some live question to see if we have some quick answer before we go to next roundtable discussion. Um, Grass answer. So we should just write down what was the outcome of our role. Anyone want to answer this question? Jeffrey, you want
Uh,
to? Mhm.
Casey, go
oh,
ahead. And,
Okay.
yeah,
So,
sorry, I was gonna kind of since I may or may not have opened a can of worms with the whole like impact first and all that sort of stuff. I like to kind of follow a format of kind of impact first at least, just to showcase how you contributed to the team or to the product itself, and then the how, and then using the what. So that's kind of following, for example, like, oh, I contributed to, let's say, for example, to the 2% daily active user goal that my company had for the quarter by building this project using XYZ tool through these types of techniques and whatnot. Just kind of speaking more from a software engineering perspective. So I don't think it's more so just only work on the outcomes, but rather use the outcomes to set the pretext for how you did it and what you used.
that's a
yeah.
good answer.
And to add on to that, I
Okay.
think the way that I look at applications is the resume gets you the interview gets you the job, right? But the resume is primarily reviewed by the recruiter, right? That's the hard part. You can still get it through the technical manager, but the biggest funnel and bottleneck here is that recruiter, and that recruiter I expect to be non-technical, and that's why it's important for me to put that business impact first, because they don't understand that I refactored a React thing to make it 6 times faster. Like, that doesn't mean anything to them. What does mean something to them is that I made the customer experience better, for example, and that's why I always put that first.
Mm. Someone also asked how important is the GitHub profile. I feel like it depends, but anyone has, like Alex, you're laughing.
Oh, I laugh because I have a GitHub link, but there's nothing on there. So I guess in my personal experience, even when I didn't have any, let's see, any experience coming out of like school, there was just, I don't think GitHub was like the most important thing to me. I think I focused a lot more on how I presented the projects I had on my resume than it was on the GitHub profile. I think something I would be careful of is that, like, there are some people who like to over-index or over-focus on making their GitHub the prettiest thing possible. But at the end of the day, it is just a link on your resume, and there is like a good chance that someone isn't going to click that link. So I would focus more on what is presented in front of them, which is that document, instead of like that external website.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I would like to
agree.
I would like to add on that, and I think Jeffrey also touched upon it. Like, your resume goes first to recruiter, right? So first step is to passing that barrier, and I think a recruiter is never going to open your GitHub profile. Let me tell you that. He, so how you express your projects matter, but yes, once your resume goes to your hiring manager, and if your hiring manager is interested in your project, they might see it, but I don't think recruiter is ever gonna open your GitHub profile.
Yeah, I also invited a recruiter for our session, like probably start in half an hour. Gonna ask more questions for what do they pay attention to. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I would add onto that is, do notice what your username and your profile picture is on your GitHub, just in case. It's okay if there's like less on there, but just keep those things somewhat reasonable.
I remember I didn't put my GitHub. I just put a portfolio website. I hope that's a good reference for people who are curious. Let me okay. Someone asking how important is referral is. Me personally feel referral is important. Like, not, I wouldn't say it's referral. I would say networking is important. For my experience, I was contacted by a recruiter from Amazon, and they asked me on LinkedIn to see if I'm interested in interview. And then also I got reached out by Google Recruiter too. So I didn't go through the normal process. So I would say referral and just general networking is important. What do you guys think?
I want to say something very quickly. I think I've had 3 total interviews with FAANG, and not one of them was through a referral. So it's definitely possible without a referral. Um, I think almost all of my referrals have gone nowhere. So it really is sometimes luck, sometimes the right person.
I would also
Yeah.
like to add on that. I think I only got 2 referrals, and those 2 were the only jobs I got rejected for. So, but I think,
How you rejected?
but I think the job market when I applied back in 2020 is very different than current job market. So I do help people to get a referral in Meta, and I have seen them succeeding with that. So I think it varies. Yeah.
So from our three, oh, sorry, Alex.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, in my experience, I've also never gotten through an interview from a referral. I think I saw some statistic where it's like 25% of all interviews are from referrals. That means 75% are from cold applications. So it definitely is where the majority is. It's just actually cold applying. That's how my experience has been.
Thanks for sharing, everyone's sharing experience. I think from us four, I didn't know Casey's experience, but like we definitely have different opinion on referral. Someone asking me how do I get a recruiter reach out to me? Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't get it because I have referral. I guess just they reach out to me on LinkedIn. I guess one thing is at that time the job market is good. Another thing is I have a lot of experience on my LinkedIn at that time. I have a lot of internship. I have a lot of I have a lot of job experience. And even my first ever new grad, I work for a full-time job and at the same time I work part-time on the side. So I have a lot of experience. I would say that's something showcase. Yeah, that's my guess. So if we don't have any question for now, let's go to the roundtable topic. I'm gonna throw out a question, and each of us can share a little bit insight on that. So the first question is about how do we emphasize impact result matrix or customer outreach? So can you share a little bit about your approach? How do you emphasize impact? I will go from Alex because you are like next to me.
Okay, yeah, I guess we'll all do a roundtable. So I think I touched a little bit about this, where I would read the product requirements document and then just look at the numbers of like why are we building this? What impact does it have on the business or the end customer? So I would start with that. When I write my bullet points, I would front load the impact with the metric or why this matters, to increase revenue by $1 billion or whatever. And then I would follow up with how I did that, or yeah. So I think that second part is really hard for a lot of people, which is talking about like who did they work with, what did they lead, how did they coordinate this, all the challenges that they overcame to do that. So when I do structure this bullet point, the template is actually like what the impact was and then how they achieved that impact. Those are the two things I like to think about. For terms of like engineering impact, I think something I thought about this a little bit more. What would help a lot is actually being very attentive to like what you're doing on call. So when you're on call, you're looking at a lot of dashboards, a lot of metrics, and maybe you're fixing bugs or issues, and there's a lot of problems there. You can recognize a lot of the numbers there, and you can actually think a lot about like what you can put on your resume from your on-call experience. If you're struggling with like what metrics to get, that's where you can get them from.
Thanks. Levi, do you want to go next? About the question that how do you emphasize impact on the resume?
Sure. I think Alex and I already touched a little bit on that. Again, starting from what was the impact of a project. Now, there are some other things that we feel are very trivial because we did it. So sometimes, let's say, if you identified a gap in your project or if there was an issue, that you resolved it or you brought your team's attention to that we should do that, mention that. That's also a very big impact that you can mention it like, I identified and resolved critical issues in this pipeline or in this project. So that's another huge impact I feel like one should have. And I totally agree with Jeffrey's statement of like, I also like to be, oh, I'm a human. I bring teams together. I'm not just a nerd. So that is also a very great impactful work because yeah, people, we have AI right now, right? So if we want somebody just to write code, we have a lot of resources available right now, but we would love to have collaborative people who can work efficiently as well as take pull people together, pull teams together. So that would be my addition to that.
What do you think, Casey?
So I always think that, despite obviously in most environments, if not all environments, introducing some intricacies to even discovering or surfacing those metrics in the first place, simply because you're working on perhaps like a platform team contributing to actual business results, right? So sometimes it does get kind of blurry upon like where you're landing your impact the most. I always try to recommend that to always kind of see the bigger picture. By bigger picture, I mean that even if you're working on very small, for example, platform service or internal tool and like anything sort of like that, As long as you know for a fact that that's kind of like a cog in the pipe that's contributing to a larger impact business goal or product goal, I think that's when you can really say that you've enabled for this specific product goal or business goal to make it succeed. That's what I always like to say. And I struggled with this myself because I was coming from like a platform team in Bing, which I was kind of working on like models, shipping models that was specifically helping front end user features, which thus would actually lead to daily active users or ad revenue or whatever it was. So I struggled with that too. And that's kind of like my perspective of learning how to really showcase that I've contributed to these business metrics going upwards.
Thanks for sharing. Jeffrey, I saw you nodding.
Yeah, I nod because I have nothing else to say. Really, realistically, I mean, you guys have covered it. The only real thing for me is that I just, you know, I think about how is this really gonna change the company long term? How is this gonna change the product? How are people gonna see this and experience it? And even if it's something small, it's making the experience better in some kind of way. And you can always try and figure out how you're making that product, that company better. I won't repeat everything that everyone has said.
Yeah, that's a good summary. Thank you. I guess because we're running a little bit late, we probably don't have enough time to go over many roundtable questions. So I will just ask any of you, do you have any tips to stand like for anyone like want to stand out in this competitive job market, because the job market is still like getting better from last year but still very hard. Any suggestions or tips? I'll start from Jeffrey this time so that you get benefit that you can speak anything first.
Thank you. Yeah, how to stand out. Honestly, everyone has their own strengths, and you have to figure out what that is, right? For me, that was organizational leadership. And I didn't realize it was a strength until I had done a lot of it. And I was like, this is really easy for me and really hard for everyone else. So I leaned into that, and then I went, how can I make this benefit my career? How can I make this showcase the fact that I am a good employee, I'm a good team worker, and how can I connect this? So kind of find out what passions you have that could be useful, that could be effective and related to your employment career. And lean on your strengths, right? It's always about leaning on your strengths. You can cover up your weaknesses all you want, but you have to stand out, and you stand out by making yourself strong and unique and different. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, find your strengths. That's really great point. Casey, what do you think?
I think personally speaking, like one of the biggest things for me is that, obviously some of us got the kind of privilege and we're lucky to get to work with a job market back in maybe 2020, 2021 when it was much more different, right? Now that I've learned, 2023, 2024, when it's a much more tight market, simply people are kind of going through a lot of different things. They're exploring, learning new tech skills, going back to school, working on more side projects. But one thing that I personally feel like I don't see perhaps enough of is for example, developers, PMs, or marketers, whatever job in tech you have, reaching out to all the startups based in SF, based in Vancouver, Toronto, New York, and just kind of offering to help work with them in some capacity. That's what I actually did to try to land my first ever PM job as well, in such that you're going on to platforms such as Angel.co or, for example, other startup websites where you just reaching out to founders and saying like, hey, what can I do to kind of help grow your business and whatnot? Because these are established companies that you could already have on your resume. This is kind of the low-hanging fruit I see sometimes. So I'm kind of speaking from a different angle from what people may be expecting. But at least I'm kind of, I think that this is more kind of practical experience that you could try to get immediately in the case that you're having struggles trying to, get an actual kind of high-paying tech job. This is the low-hanging fruit that you need to kind of conquer and seek, just so you get the experience out in the front door and you'll learn what working in a startup is also like.
Maybe what do you think? You think about something very serious.
Yeah, I was because everyone has covered most of the points, but I would say leverage your network efficiently. And by that, I do mean like if you can do physical networking, if you have targeted audience, if you have targeted conferences, do attend them. But at the same time, keep on building your skill set. I think that's the most important thing. But with networking, you can also increase your chances for grabbing an opportunity. Something I would advise.
Yeah, that's really great suggestion. Oh, I saw some one question from Kevin that what is the website that Casey mentioned previously?
Yeah, the website used to be called angel.co or Angel List. Now it's called Well Found. So go check that out. That's where actually I found a lot of my previous kind of PM internships at various different startup companies, including a crypto startup based in NYC.
Maybe I think it's a question for you.
I think it's for all of us, but no, master's degree is not required to get. I think most of us, Alex and Annie, you've done your undergrad, and I think, and you're in FAANG, right? You were able to grab that opportunity, so no, it's not required.
Yeah,
And I
everyone
would
has
say one more suggestion. So, uh, uh, providing some context on what Casey mentioned. So, there is platform called Y Combinator. I know it's for startups, but you can also mention that you want to be an individual contributor, and you can put your application down there. And if there is someone who is building a startup, they can reach out to you. If you don't have any idea, but you have the skill set and you want to work in a startups, so that platform can also help you there.
Sure, thanks. Alex, do you want to share your tips and also maybe also answer this question of what do you think if master is required?
Sure, I'll start with the master's required. In my experience, it's not required for like entry level roles. A lot of myself, and I think you too, Annie, and I think a lot of my coworkers that I worked with, a majority of, or a handful of them did not have a master's degree. The ones that did, I think the conversations I've had with them is that they needed it to come to the States to work here. But for the ones who are already like domestic, or already present in the States, or they don't need to travel to wherever they're going to, I don't think it was like strongly required. My bits of advice for writing a resume to close off, I think there's like two things I would probably mention. I think the first one is you have to be your own hype person. So there's going to be a lot of things there that you felt like were really boring or really easy to do. I mean, there was like one time there was someone made a code change that broke payments in Saudi Arabia. And it was like for 5 hours, and it was just like one code change, and 30,000 people were impacted. And all I did was click on revert change, right? But I would talk about this. I'm like, yeah, I saved payments for 30,000 people, and all I did was revert change. It sounds so simple, but that's what the impact was. And even though it was boring for someone to do, you still have to hype yourself up. And then I think the last thing I think that would help a lot of people here is that the people who are willing to help you, in my experience, are the people who most recently just went through that process. So maybe like if you're like a new grad or like going to graduate soon, the people who are going to help you are people who probably went to the same school as you and just graduated too. I think if you reached out to like that 10-year like big meta senior, I think it might be really hard to get a response from them. But the people who just like we were in the similar clubs, maybe you were a year ahead or you just graduated, those people will be more likely to reply and to reach out if you try to say hi to them on LinkedIn or anything else.
Thank you. That's a really great sharing. I'm wondering, like, I'm trying to like go through the live question and then try to see what are some good questions that we can go over before we're ending, because we're getting really to the end of the session, and trying to go through any questions we have in the Slido. And oh, someone asked, can Annie share her resume? Yeah, because I will share it next time if you come next event. Yeah, because what information is necessary. Yeah, so I guess anyone wanna share anything before we end? Because I'm trying to browsing any question in the live. Alex or Navi or Jeffrey, anything you want to share before we wrap up the session? No.
Sure. I think the last thing for me is the resume is important, the interview is important, all of it is important, but don't get overwhelmed by it. The approach that I take is to, spend a couple weeks, maybe a month, making that resume better, making it as good as I can make it, as much as I can make it, and then kind of cycle to focus on something else. Do your lead code or do your networking or something, and don't get overwhelmed by having to do everything at the same time. Everyone's kind of in this incremental improvement of um, getting to a better place, and there's no rush.
Yeah.
One at a time. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I kind of want to add something to this person's question. Thanks for asking a question. It's about, does it matter from what college you graduate from? Just me personally, I know some people, like my teammate in Google, that they don't from a computer science background, or they don't graduate from like they're from very non-traditional background. So I feel like everyone can have your journey. Definitely a good school or a master degree can improve your chances and to make you more competitive in the job market. But I don't think it's impossible for everyone to coming from a non-traditional background. That's my that's how I feel. And I saw people like my colleague who work in Google, like they actually, a lot of them from non-traditional backgrounds. So I truly believe that everyone can make their journey. Yeah, I trying
I
to. Oh,
I think I again want to. I was trying to think of a good example to mention impact, and Alex just mentioned it. So I again wanted to emphasize on that. Like by just reverting a code change, he saved salary of 30,000 people, if I got that right. So that's a huge impact. An impact doesn't need to come from a project that you worked on for 3 months or 6 months. It can be just 5 minute work, or it can be just 50 hours of work. So an impact is just impact. So yeah, don't trivialize your work.
yeah,
And yeah, like Alex said, you have to hype up yourself a little bit. Not too much,
yeah,
a little bit.
little bit, like at a good, proper degree. Thanks. That's a great session. Someone's asking when is the HR recruiter session. We're going to have our next one in about 10 minutes. So we probably have to wrap up soon. Like we will address more question related. For example, we address some common mistake, what are tips recommended from HR perspective, and we will get some different perspective from HR, like in 10 minutes for next interview session. And for this session, thank you so much for everyone here sharing your resume, answering the question. And this is really good. I really appreciate each of you here. So do you want to, like, each of us maybe share one sentence to before we wrap up the session, like anything you want to encourage, how you want to encourage the audience, or any tips you want to share, just one sentence. That's wrap up session in that way. Jeffrey, do you want to start from you so that you won't run out of the sentence if you're the last person?
Sure. I feel like I already said it, but I mean, you got this one step at a time, and
Yes,
don't
you
get
got.
overwhelmed by it. Yeah.
Yeah, Casey.
Find a mentor and seek mentorship. It helps a lot.
How to find mentor? Like one sentence. Because we're wrong all the time.
Use a mentorship platform. Mentorship platforms are a lot. ADP List, Merit, a lot of different platforms.
Thanks. Very concise. Maybe what's your suggestion or anything you want to say to the audience?
Don't be too hard on yourself, one step at a time. And you can also find mentors. And yes, do find mentors. You can find mentors on LinkedIn. If you have a very specific ask, mention it on the LinkedIn message, like, hey, I'm looking for this, can you help us, can you help me, can you mentor me? And yeah, you got this.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. Like simply you got this can really cheer people up. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say that nobody starts having it figured out, right? It's not a single player game. So the more help that you can get, I think the better off that will be. And there are people who are willing to support you, like the people here trying to give advice on what their journey has been.
Thank you. And I would say just don't give up because it might be really hard. But if you're not giving up, I think eventually you will made it. So I really believe each of you on your journey. All right. I guess we still have some question that not finished, and the people is asking anyone in the panel is open to be the mentor. So I will post everyone's linking information later on, either on, probably on this live post or so. Yeah, I will post it on LinkedIn, and so everyone can reach out to every speaker today. And if you're curious, if you want them to be a mentor, you can reach out on LinkedIn to see if they have capacity. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much for this first part of the session. And I will have a coffee break and start the second half with HR director. And thank you again, everyone, for coming to this. Bye for now.
Thanks.
Maybe I can see you in the future session. Yeah,
Thanks, everyone.
thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
having us.
Thanks, Annie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So I'm going to start the next part. Have a talk with HR director, answer the question for the common mistake and good practice, and feel free to put your question either in the live chat or scan this QR code and asking questions, and I will pay attention in Slido. So how we're going to do this is first we will ask some general question, and then I'll pay attention to the chat. And at the very end, we'll gather some question for the Q&A session for our guest. Yeah. How you feel right now after first an hour and a half, like 2 hour, an hour and a half session with other people's resume demonstration? Tired? Need some coffee? Oh, need to revise your resume ASAP. Yeah, a lot of learning. Lots to do. Thank you for the feedback. All right, I will going to introduce our guest. Let me switch window and hi. Hey, let me introduce our special guest, HR Director Corey. Corey, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Yanni, for having me here. So I'm Corey Olson. I've worked in HR for over 20 years, mostly in organizational development, talent development, employee engagement and experience, as well as leadership development and coaching. Some of my past history, I've worked for private financial firms, global financial services firms, as well as local government and larger government organizations. And yeah, I've learned a lot through my process of working with people, and specifically on our topic today of resumes, resume writing, and really what does the employer want to see from you when they're looking at your resume specifically to get that job that you really want.
Cool. Thanks for the introduction. Anyone in the chat, well, if you have any question, feel free to put your question in the chat anytime. And I want to start from this image. This is an eye tracking image for a recruiter. Like that's what they said. They said, like that's how recruiter take a look at your resume. And this is eye tracking of a recruiter, and they only spend 7 seconds on resume. I'm so curious, how true is this?
Yeah, good question. So when I've probably looked at hundreds of thousands of resumes in my time. And I think one of the things that you're always looking at is who's the person that you're looking at first. And, you really want to get into the details of what's in your specific resume and also cover letter. So I think from the scan piece, for sure, the red area is really like the hot areas. What I see is they kind of want to know where you're from, who are you, and I imagine I can't really see through the red and the yellow and the green there, but really, what's your profile statement? So what's really important that an employer needs to know about you and your resume? So that really quick statement, and then looking at your most current history of where you've worked. So I would say it's quite true. I also talked to our talent acquisition director as well, and I showed this to her. It's the first time she had seen it. She's like, "Wow, Corey, this is quite cool," and she believed it to be quite true as well, because we're looking at those details and really trying to comprehend who's the person that I'm going to be talking to. So yeah, I would think it's quite true when you actually have physical eyes looking at it. So when I say physical eyes, you'd also have a computer looking at it, right? So new AI technology or just other acquisition software that's really looking for really key points. So I would think it's probably quite the same.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your reveal the secret that what is actually eye tracking for a recruiter. We have a previous session that will people showcase their resume, and there are lots of questions about ATS. A lot of question about how do they feel about two column. So I'm curious, like if I put so this is example we have here is one column, right?
Yes.
So what do you think? For example, if I put one of the previous, this is someone's resume, and this is two column. That's like what do you notice the first if you look at this resume, and that's two column pass ATS.
Yeah. So I'll give you my perception of it, and then I'll give you my talent acquisition director's thoughts on it. So I'll start with mine. I like it personally. So if you were handing this to me, then I would be like quite impressed because visually I'm a very visual person. So for me, I like that. And I'd be impressed. But when I talked to our talent acquisition director, she said that this really doesn't matter. So especially if you're in the IT world, a lot of IT directors, managers that are hiring and VPs are not really looking to see how well you can design a resume. They're really looking specifically for things that what you've actually accomplished and how you can help the organization. The other piece is when you have a resume like this and you're putting it into the system, it never recognizes that you've got a two column. So generally it'll take the content that's in your actual resume and it will put it into a system, and it kind of feeds in. It's like a bit of a hopper. So if you're going to an interview, I think this could be something that you actually hand to the actual hiring manager. But overall, the talent acquisition director said there's no real value for them.
I see. So one column, two column actually doesn't matter that much. They only they just grab all the information to the system. Is that?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's interesting. So you said you're a visual person. So for previously, we have some resume like this kind of format, like it's very simple, one column, and we have format like this. What I show you, like two column, like so. Those doesn't matter to you, like one
No,
column.
I think the one column is going to be the overall better, and especially when you're as a candidate, you're putting your information into the system. It's just going to take the raw data and put it in there, so it doesn't matter. Where I work, it doesn't even look like this. So you'll put your resume in there; it will look nothing like this. It has a standard format that it kicks it out to the recruiter and to the hiring manager. So that's why I said if you're really intentional that you really love your two column and you want to bring it to the interview and hand it to the hiring manager, that's fine. But generally, they're going to get something that doesn't even look like your particular resume, depending on the organization. So I don't want to be very specific on each organization, but overall, it doesn't really matter that it's one column, two column, three column. It's got pictures, no pictures. It's really looking for the data specifically.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting to know. Previously, when we showcase this resume, and a lot of people have questions about ATS. They were like, okay, this is two column, and they have hyperlink. Does this pass ATS? And what is the mystery of ATS? Like, can you share more about a good practice for candidates when they submit resumes, so for the suggestion for them, so that they can pass ATS? And what is the mystery of ATS from your perspective?
Yeah, I think again it goes back to, and I don't know all the different recruitment systems that are out there, but a lot of times the links don't really matter. I think what happens in some systems, the links will come out, but whether or not a hiring manager actually has time to go through the links is a whole other game, right? So if you're hiring and you get 100 or more resumes and you're trying to file them down, generally not going to look at them. For myself, I have had the opportunity where I've actually looked at some of the links. But again, it goes back to, I love what's in this resume where you're seeing a lot of highlight about how have you improved product adoption by 20% in 3 months. The hiring manager and the recruiter is looking for those type of things. Those are the things that are really standing out. So what I see on this resume, which may not even be caught in a system, is the bolding, right? But when you see the numbers, and I think it's good having numbers rather than writing out 20%, is that they're eye-catching. They're really looking, and a lot of times they're looking at a ton of different resumes. They're looking for the numbers. They're looking how you've actually improved quality, how you've increased profitability, how you've saved the organization money or time. Those are really critical pieces when you're building your resume and your experience.
Yeah. So when you look at this one and you see all the number here, and that's pretty, that's really showcase their impact. Is that?
Yeah. And I think again, like if you're getting an interview, the good thing is if you've got a resume that looks like this, that's got the bolding, I think it's good because I would take it away and relook at it again and say, oh, that was a great interview with this individual. And then you're looking a bit different. But in the interview, you should really be trying to focus on those numbers when you're introducing yourself and going through that process.
I see. Thanks. That's really, really, really helpful. And I'm gonna put this, unpin this one for trying to find this. Give me a sec. Okay. We have some question. Like previously, people talk about, they have career change. They have or they have employment gaps. How do you suggest people who have, there is a gap in their experience or the career change? What is a good practice that like for them to put on explain the situation on the resume?
Yeah, I think that's good. A lot of really great recruiters are going to pick up on that there was a gap. So there's two ways of doing it. Is you just leave the gap and then the recruiter will ask you, why was there a gap in this service? Or just be honest and say, why was there a gap in your service? So either way, it's going to be identified because they're going to be looking very methodically year by year of where have you spent your time. And obviously there's all kinds of valid reasons why. Maybe you were off on a sick leave, maybe you were having a child, like there's all kinds of things that happen, or maybe you're traveling, or maybe you just wanted to take a break. So I think honesty is always the best practice when you're working through gaps in your resume. Don't hide it because it will always be exposed. It's not something that should ever be hidden. If I know, the biggest one that comes up is, I was either laid off or terminated from my last job. That's okay. It's about a learning experience. And, if they ask you about that, you're really just going to say, we had a downsizing and I also took some extra time off just to be able to travel or whatever happens case. But I would just be honest. And I think this is where a lot of times it's really helpful to have a career coach. If you have a career coach, they can help you through those really tricky situations, especially if you do have large gaps in service. It would be really helpful because they can help you kind of use and choose the right words to assist you in your actual interviews. It's a good question.
So if someone just the best. So what I heard is just be honest and then just try not to decorate anything. Just be honest, and then when recruiter asks you, and you just be honest, tell them about the real situation and showcase what you learned.
Yeah, and I've worked with some really keen recruiters, and if they see a gap that you haven't put in there, they will ask about it because that's what they're really looking for. They're really trying to understand, what's your career history been, depending on the recruiter. But yeah, just be honest. And if you don't put anything in there, so for instance, say you had a gap between 22 and 24, and it's just, it shows job to job. It's an explainable reason why, and I think just to be able to talk about it.
I saw some people, like I randomly browsing LinkedIn, and then I saw some people put like mindful, like some mental health break on during their gap. Is that something you would suggest?
You know what? I think that honesty is really great. I think not everybody is still in that same mindset of what is mental health really in the end of the day. So, I mean, it is a mental health break really just time off to get to know yourself better and work through some things. Yeah. Do you have to call it mental health? I don't know that I would use those terms. I think it's great because it's honest, but I think because there's still a stigmatism around mental health, kind of those terminologies, I would try and maybe use something different that would be, just took a break. I just really needed a break. And there's somebody that I work with, and every 5 years she takes a sabbatical from work. That's what she does. She goes and travels. She learns more about herself, and that's mental health as well, right? So depends how you want to define mental health or mental well-being, or just taking time for yourself, taking that sabbatical. Everybody does it differently, and if you explain it, I think it's fair enough. You don't have to go into the details of what exactly that was, but you really need that time. So that's another great question, and it does happen, right? Especially in these days, post-COVID, COVID, and post-COVID for sure.
I have a question about having objective.
Yeah, I personally like an objective, and I think that's what sets you apart from everybody else on your resume. Is when you look at that objective, it's like, what are you really trying to accomplish? And again, anytime you can inject a little bit more about yourself and who you are, because a resume in some cases is very canned. It's telling a story of your work history and of what you've accomplished. But every time you're able to put who you are, what are you aggressively trying to seek is really important. I know just looking in the comments is that people have also talked about the cover letter. I don't know if we're going to cover the cover letter, but again, the cover letter is also that time to really say who are you, and be able to shine a bit on who are you as a person. What makes you different and sets you apart.
I remember when I went to a school workshop and students asking me if the cover letter is optional, do they need to upload cover letter? I told them it's good to have, but what do you think? Do recruiter actually take a look at cover letter? Does that make a difference?
I think for every organization I've worked for, they've asked for a cover letter. And my personal opinion is recruiting a lot of people, whether they're contractors, employees, temp assignments, whatever happens to be, is I want to know a little bit more about them. I'll look at the resume first, but I will go and take a look and say, okay, this person's described themselves as this. What did they actually say about themselves in the cover letter and the objective, right? Those two things I think should connect, your objective and what your cover letter are, who you are as a person. And I'm not saying, I've got black hair and brown eyes. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what's actually setting you apart from somebody else. Why would they want to hire you? And so for me personally, and I'm really people-centric, that's really super important for me. You're going to have other people out there that are going to be all about the numbers, may not care about that much, but you don't know who the recruiter is that's supporting the hiring manager in the process. And if they're looking at that and they're very people-centric and it really matters to them, they're going to put your resume forward because something sticks out to them about you.
I saw there's a question about how do recruiters evaluate quality of project? What are standard? I can give you example. This is how we put some example of how we put how we describe project.
Yeah.
And then I wonder, from recruiter perspective, how do you evaluate the quality of project?
I think that, twofold. Again, it's about what did you do specifically in that project? What was your role? And what did you do? What was it? Was it cost savings? How did you what was the rollout look like? There's a whole bunch of different things. It's a pretty big question, but I think there's 2 parts of this. There's the recruiter and then there's the hiring manager. Recruiter, depending on who the recruiter is, if they're a very specific technical recruiter and they work specifically, it's all IT type of work, then maybe they're a bit closer to it. If they're more general, then they're going to be looking for, does everything line up? Does everything make sense? The hiring manager, the ones that's going to really be the one that says what's the measure of quality from that perspective, right? So, if you look at it from a project management standpoint, they may be looking at cost, quality, and time. What happened there? What type of, what were you implementing? How large was the implementation? How many people? What did it affect? What did you save? How much money did it, usually you won't say how much, well, in some cases, how much, because it was a, $20 million project or a $60 million project or a $1 million, all those things really make sense because what it actually does, it paints a bit of a picture for the recruiter and the hiring manager of what you've done. What's the scale of something you've taken on? So I would say that they evaluate it different. But again, it's all depends on the type of person that's looking at. There's some people that are more, again, numbers focused, and that's really going to be critical for them.
Thanks. It's a great insight. And people also ask some key elements for resume to stand out. Like in a tech industry, like key element, so they can demonstrate some resume. Yeah, what do you think are key elements that make a resume stand out?
The resumes that you put on the screen are, I think, really well done as far as what they're actually doing. And being in kind of this tech industry, there's very specific tech language. And I think it's really important to highlight those things, especially the current what's out there right now, cloud, and all the different things that people are going to be looking at. But I also want to say that you have to also look at the job description. So when they're posting a job description, what are they telling you in there that they want? So that's why you'll a lot of times hear customize your resume based on the job that you're doing, right? So there's maybe a case where you have 2 or 3 different resumes and you're interchanging pieces of that you've done depending on that role, right? So, if you're doing the same kind of software, development or engineering all the time, then maybe it's pretty standard. But, they're going to want to know what are your current skills. They're going to want to know, what have you learned? What have you actually practiced with? Or actually implemented or worked on, developed. I think those are going to be really important things. Again, they're looking at you. They're looking at what's currently out there as far as the up-to-date knowledge and skills that you have. I think those two they're going to tie together and say, okay, I can see these pieces coming together really well. Does that help?
Yeah, that definitely helps. People, like, if you think your question is not answered clearly, you can keep asking in the live chat, and I'll pay attention to.
Yes, please
let
do.
me know. And for this resume, and people also put soft skills there. So I'm wondering how important is soft skills for a tech job. So, for example, I'm looking for a software engineer or data scientist, and I put my soft skills there. Not necessarily this case, but in general, how important it is to have soft skills for engineer job.
I think soft skills. Yeah, I think soft skills are the number one underrated skill that's people don't always think about. And I deal a lot of times getting this in the behavioral interviewing is how have you worked on a team on this project together? Because it's all about doing work together. I know there's a lot of things that you do on your own in some cases, but you're also collaborating with folks. You're doing so many things that have to do with other people, and soft skills are all about, especially these days, I would say kind of more modern leadership development is things like your emotional intelligence. How are you able to respond to others? How do you get along with others? How do you work well with others? How have you collaborated against different business areas? So that collaboration, to me, collaboration is one of my biggest deal breakers. If somebody can't collaborate, it's a big difference because, whether it's big or small, somebody said, talked in the chat about even startup companies, even more important because you're working on a startup. You got to get things going. As part of the organization I'm in, we had a big startup that we had to get up and running within 7 months. The collaboration was critical in our 5,000 people organization, and that small group was 5,000 people. So we're putting in technology. We're doing distribution, supply chain. We're creating store, brick and mortar stores, and online channels. Super important for those things to happen. And so things are really important. Is that emotional intelligence? Can you work with others? Can you collaborate across business lines? And I think this one always stands out for me. Kind of being more on the non-technical side is being very clear and simple in your language because. Being a software engineer, a lot of specific technical jargon. How do you take that and how do you make it more simplistic for the other folks? So it's also having those skills to be able to say, hey, I don't know that everybody understands what these languages are and these acronyms. So making it really simple.
I have a question that when you say soft skill, I understand that soft skill is very important, but do you recommend them to just tell people, okay, I have the soft skill, that I'm a great team leader, or I demonstrate that in my experience? oh, if I want to demonstrate that, how to demonstrate my soft skill in my experience to show people that, oh, I'm a great team player, rather than tell people, oh, I'm a great team player.
Yeah, and that's really about, I led a team of 6 people in the development of X software, right? So it comes back to the original question, do I need to have a cover letter? I don't know that all organizations out there require a cover letter. Again, that's the time you're going to sell yourself, and I think that's where you can put your soft skills. But I think you can also smatter your soft skills throughout the resume as well, like things like saying I collaborated with 3 different departments, right? Collaborated with supply chain. I collaborated with human resources and external parties. Anytime you can use those kind of words that are really important about leading, managing, and collaborating are really super simple. Yeah.
So try to put the leadership or collaboration words when you demonstrate your experience can showcase your soft skills.
Exactly.
Thank you. Let me browse the live chat, and I think this is a great question. That what's a best approach to rewrite a resume? I think that if I rephrase it, I would say, how do people personalize their resume for a specific job requirement? For example, a job is looking for Java. Do I just highlight all the Java language I have so that you can personalize it? What do you suggest? What do we pay attention to when we rewrite a resume for a career or role?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's a multifaceted question because there's a couple of different things that come to my mind. Is the question specifically here is what's the best way or approach to rewriting a resume for a career or role change? Is highlighting what specifically is really important on the new job description. So you may have something that you've done, but how do you translate that into what they're looking for? So you can always use all past experiences are super good about how you translate it. And I think this might tie really well into your last question about your personal qualities. Like what are some of those things, those leadership attributes, those collaboration, all those pieces, is be able to utilize that in what's going there. And when you say career role change, I don't know how different career you mean, if it's still in the same tech industry. So it's just, going from one programming language to another. In that case, if it was that, it's like, hey, you're very good at this. Now you're moving to this, is saying, highlighting all the good things you've done in your current role, and then saying, here's what I've done, moving to learning a new programming code or whatever that happens to be, is saying, here's my education, and highlighting what you've done to become more proficient in the new programming code or in that new career sector. I'll give you a personal example for me. So when I moved from a senior manager role into director role, I went to my career coach and I said, I need to rewrite my resume. I need it to be much higher level than it is now, because when you're in a senior manager role, you're strategic, but you're not as strategic as you need to be in a director role. So for me, a bit of a career change from that perspective. I actually used that career coach to actually help rewrite the resume. It was about $1,000, which is not cheap, of course, but the lift that I was going to get in my pay was going to be more than that. So of course, the small amount of money I'm spending now, that could be very different, but working really closely and making sure that some of those things align. And that's why I say career coach, because they're really good at helping you kind of formulate this. Some cases you're not able to do that, it's fine. We have things like AI out there. We've got lots of great resume examples. If you're good at searching, you're going to be able to find all those kind of things like career change, career role change. But don't be shy to say that you're making a career change. I think it's a great thing that you're actually saying, hey, I really mastered this art of my last role, and I'm really looking for an opportunity for something else.
Yeah, I think a lot of questions related to this career change, like personalize your resume topic. A lot of people asking a very specific question, like from finance to tech and from non-traditional to tech. Do you have any specific insight or suggestions how we can write our resume to highlight most transferable skill from non-tech to tech to really make our resume stand out.
No, that makes sense. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said transferable. It's all about your transferable skills, right? At the end of the day, does it matter? Like I've worked in financial, I've worked in government, I've worked in some other organizations, had my own business as well. Everything is transferable, right? It's those people skills that are super important, that are, you know, how you've actually led, worked through projects. Then the day, it's the same people at a different organization. It's just tech versus non-tech. So I don't see it as much as a big deal. I don't know if that's coming up for folks that you're seeing some issues with that. But generally, for me, you know, we hire all types of people that come from a lot of different backgrounds in their career. I've had, so for specifically in my talent development and our performance and learning area, I've had people who are teachers before, and now we're trying to get into adult education. So adult education being more around, you know, in a corporate environment. Is there a transition to go from a school teacher, high school teacher to corporate? Yeah, for sure, because there's a different learning domains. There's two different learning domains. So highlight what have you done and how you're actually going to be able to move from the one into the other. And I think that's probably going to happen a lot more in your cover letter. So yeah, I've worked in the tech industry for this many years, and I'm, you know, going out, I want to, and the reason why you want to transition in or out of that tech industry, I think that's really helpful too, because you're painting your picture of why you want to move and why it's important to you.
Thanks for answering. I think previously for your experience about how you tailor a resume to from a senior manager to director, you reach out help from career coach. And I saw 2 comments asking about recommendation. If you don't have, I can send them later.
Yeah, I mean, I've got my own that I use, but I think right now you're in a really, like, career coaching has become huge, right? And so I would rather say you can easily find them. What's going to be important to you is, you know, do they have the tech background? That might be something that's really important to you that they can really, but overall, they're there to help you through the process, right? And I would think you got a career coach. What's their background? So look at their website, look at what they've done, look at their clients and recommendations of how they've helped people transition is going to be really super helpful. But it's really as easy as a Google search for sure.
Thanks. We have another question about the portfolio website. Like, do hiring manager actually go to the portfolio website? You know, like previously in our session, we talk about GitHub. That's for engineer to showcase their project, and we have portfolio. And how important like is this portfolio website?
You know, I don't know so much about the tech industries if that's really big. I'm gonna say it's not a big deal in most cases. I would say if you're something like a designer, maybe fashion designer, and I'm kind of going out there. I know this is not a fashion design group, but you know, like if you're going into fashion design or you're going into website design, those different, like when it's very visual, I think those are great opportunities to showcase and use it. And personally, I'm always interested if somebody shows me what work they've done. A lot of times it's very difficult to showcase because some of that stuff it's proprietary information that you can't share it, right? So if you've worked on your, you know, you got your own personal company, you do some work on the side, you're able to highlight, I think that's okay. But I think it's very different from an organization to highlight anything, especially if it's behind firewalls and stuff, right? Or what's allowable that company is going to allow you to showcase pieces of work you've done. But I personally think they're great depending on what you're using them for. Where you spend your time and effort is also something you need to think about. Are you spending time and effort in your education? Are you spending your time and effort in your resume and looking for that job? Or are you spending time in the portfolio? You know, they can all work well together as well, I think.
Someone asking the referrals is like, yeah, previously we talk about our own experience for referral, you know, like for the previous panel session, some people get referral and they got rejected. They just go through the like normal path, and some people have more chances to get referred. I feel like the referral is a mystery for us candidate. So
yeah, a couple things. In my current where I currently work, it's in the government. We have a very fair process, so everything goes through. There's nobody that's prioritized. I would say in private business, that's very different. A lot of times, if I've referred Annie for a job and she gets the job, I may get a $500 bonus, right, for bringing her in. And so those type of things are really important in a lot of organizations, is who do you know and referring, because there's a lot of talent out there. And if you can find a diamond out there to bring them in, I think it's really good. So do they bypass the initial screenings? I don't know if they bypass. In some cases they might. And when you say special tags, I don't know specifically what that means, but I would say that yes, you probably, if you know somebody internally to the company and they're referring you, you probably do get, I'm going to say probably a little bit more special treatment, because somebody knows you, right? And they can speak to that person. Again, in government, it's very difficult, but if you're working in private sector, very different. It's a whole different game. And I think it's very open to that. And I think that's why it's super important, and probably just like you're doing in these sessions, is you're able to connect with other people, right? If you're able to connect with people in your different offsites that you have for your, like if you got a special software engineering where you guys meet on things and you get together for dinners or special events, those are always great opportunities to network all the time. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very helpful. Thanks for sharing your perspective.
Yeah.
I try to go over the previous talk from last session that people also asking about GPA for new grad. Is that important?
That's a really good question, and I think depending on which country it is. So I'm going to say depending on which country. Yeah, some countries really prioritize the GPAs a lot more than others, and depending on the organization. I would say if it's an organization that's really how do I put this? Let me just give you an example. Between the United States and Canada, I think there's a huge difference. I think the United States is really driven by these type of things. I don't know if it's so relevant for the job, but even getting into educational institutions, very different, right? And the ones you go to are really prioritized. I don't think that's a big deal. And I don't know that I would actually, unless it's something that you want to highlight in your resume or, sorry, not your resume, in your cover letter, or you want to put in your education that you achieved this 4.0 grade point average. I think you can put it there, but I don't know that it's going to set you apart unless you have somebody that's really keen. Again, it's all the person who's reading it and if they think it's important. Because do I think it's important? Not really. I want to know what you've done. I want to know if you're a great person to work with and you're collaborative, you're going to get along, you're not going to cause problems working in a team. That's what's important to me. Whether you've got a 3.0 or 4.0 is not going to make a difference to me. And at the end of the day, I'll give you an example that somebody told me one day. How do you know if you're the doctor, physician, or specialist you're going to if they've got a 4.0 or a 2.5 grade point average? You're hoping they've got a 4 point, but you don't. They're a doctor, you're going to see them anyway. So when I've heard that kind of a scenario, I was like, yeah, it doesn't really matter. You're going to get what you get, right? It's how you actually show up and you perform your job.
Thank you. I have a very interesting question. Someone asked what kind of resume stand out to you immediately? Because previously we have, you shouldn't make your resume too creative or too much color. The format should be simple. And, like in your experience, what kind of resume stand out to you?
And again, it goes back to what I said before. It's really different depending on the industry. And so if you're in a design industry, like you're doing designing of websites and graphic designer, those things are going to be really critical because they're going to say they're looking at very specific detail. The detail that majority of recruiters are looking for is what you've done, how you've made a difference in the organizations that you've worked for. What's the work that you've done? If you've owned a business, what are some of the key highlights? So for myself, of course, I love pretty resumes. I think that's great if you spent the time and done it. But again, my system at work, in our organization doesn't spit out any fancy resume. So unless you're providing that resume when you actually meet for an interview, probably doesn't really matter. I hate to say that because I know lots of people like to spend time on that. And I know things like, Word has some great opportunities out there. If you use Canva, use Adobe, there's lots of ways to get those pretty resumes. But at the end of the day, if you're feeding into a system that's just going to spit out text anyways, it's not going to matter.
I have a question from Slido. Like people ask questions by scanning the code. That they said, what is a resume if the resume format is not recognized by the by the algorithm? Can information be cropped out when it is delivered to you, or this is just like it just automatic rejection?
That's a good question. I don't know specifically, but I'll tell you something. When I was talking to the director of talent acquisition, she had said to me, you should always have 2 versions of your resume. And when I say 2 versions is, if you're in a very specific, you're looking for a specific job, not one that you should also be open to saying, tailoring what your resume is, but 2 formats, the one that you're going to present and the other one that's very text based. So when you're actually entering your resume into a system, just for it to be just plain text, dump it in. You don't need the bullet points, the bolding, all that kind of stuff. So that's what she had mentioned to me, is that all that stuff kind of disappears if you've got it, or anybody that's gone through hiring and you've dumped your resume in there, you're like, oh no, I've got to spend now an hour trying to fix everything, all the formatting. Is just to have a very plain one. I don't know if that's answered it.
It's very helpful.
Okay.
There's something like we don't know because that's the recruiter's pipeline that we don't get to know. So that's really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm trying to go over the comments and
there's one that I saw here. Can I comment on it from Gloria?
Yeah.
She said, what is the best way to write a resume when half of your experience is in a foreign country? And I'll be honest with you, the majority of workers that I have on my team are from foreign countries, whether they're from the Middle East, whether they're from Asia, Europe. And you know what? That experience is so valuable. And you see things, people do things differently in different countries, generally the same. But it's good to see that. So I would say for sure, I think you need to put that on there. It's all your history. It's all about you, right? And again, that's why I'm saying your resume and your cover letter really paints a picture of who you are. And how are you going to stand out from, how does me and Andy stand out? It needs to, because we're 2 totally different people, 2 different backgrounds. And, our career journey has been very different. And our career journey, I think, is kind of like our fingerprints, right? Very unique.
What are some common mistakes you've seen?
Common mistakes. Oh, that's a good question. Not including the relevant information from the job description. I would say that's
an example.
So yeah, if the job description that you're applying for is talking about something very specific and you make no mention of that, so say in your industry, if it's something specifically about a type of technology, you've got it, but you don't include it, that would be a huge mistake. Or you don't talk about it in terms of how the employer likes to say. So you have to think about the employer. That job description is what they're looking from you, right? They're looking for, do you have the knowledge in this knowledge, skills, and requirements? Is that those pieces in there? I've seen people not include it at all. Other mistakes I've seen is using AI, where I actually saw one, and I don't want to say I laughed, but I did laugh because it was so not the person that described themselves in the resume. The cover letter used words that I even had to go to the dictionary to look up. I had no idea what these words were. And I laughed because I'm like, how do you expect somebody to look at the resume? And you don't know who the person is that's looking at your resume. Is English their first language, their second language, their third language? Simple, clear language is always going to be your best bet. So always think. So mistakes is, you don't know who your audience is. You know they're a tech firm, a tech giant. Who's the person actually doing the hiring? So make it easy enough for them to read.
Interesting. You mentioned about you can identify someone's using AI. You find it's very not natural.
A lot of times, and I think that's the thing. If you just take out what an AI, like honestly, I should find that cover letter, and I don't know if I could use it, and show it as an example. But it really, just even if I took one sentence, people would get that it's not really authentic. And I think that's the thing. Somebody's asked a question about
AI.
Just their soft skills. This was something about soft skills, and how do you demonstrate soft skills in a resume, right? It's again the things I've talked about. It's how do you build into your resume? How do you build in that objective statement? Who are you as a person, right? I'm a highly collaborative, software engineer, making sure that that the customer and business are connected in whatever it happens to be, right? I'm just making some stuff up, but really showing what you do, and then the interview is going to be the only time you're really ever going to be able to really show who you are and your authentic self, right? Because again, if I go back to the AI experience, that was nothing. It could have been exactly the person, but it was not the person that I saw in the resume, right? The cover letter were two different things.
Mm. Oh, someone asking about text-based resume. Like previously you mentioned that it's recommended everyone has two versions of resume. One version is submit, one version is text-based. Can you explain what is a text-based resume? I feel like we have like two questions related to that.
Yeah, if you put one of those resumes up, the one that's not the two, just the one column, and if you could put it up, I'll just explain it. What you would really want to do is you'd want to take out things like the lines in here. You'd want to take out any formatting. So, if you look from Microsoft to Bellevue, Washington, there's all those tabs put in. Really, it would just be simply text, no bullet points, but keeping it. So Microsoft with all your information, I put Microsoft, Bellevue, Washington, the dates that you worked there, and then your title. I'd put the bullet points, but with no bullets, just the points, and then move to Amazon. So it's just purely nothing extra, no formatting in any way.
Cool, thank you. I saw.
Sorry, I'm just gonna say, keep it so it's logical from the time you worked, like, right? So if it's 2024, 23, 22, 21, make sure you put it that way. I also am not sure. Some people actually go from their furthest back experience.
Mhm.
So if you started working in 1990 and then you have to look all the way down for your most current experience, I think that's a bit of a miss for folks. Always put your most relevant information up front.
Most.
Yeah.
Thanks. I saw someone talk about the hiring decision. When they make the decision, they need to show everything like website, GitHub, resume, and all the interview. Like it's a combination. Is that true?
Let me just read. I'm just going to reread this question. So I've seen hiring decision meetings where the personal website, GitHub contributions highlighted on the resume matters when the interview decision is mixed. Definitely helpful to have on your resume. Again, that it's really to me. This is something that's specific to what your industry and what you're hiring for. I always think that's what's really important, and most organizations are very open to calling the recruiter. Call the recruiter and say, hey, I've got a question. A lot of people are open for you calling them, and because generally there'll be a name associated with who you're going to contact. Ask them the questions. Mm-hmm. If you're not sure about something, I'd be very cautious what questions you're asked, but this is a really good one that you say, hey, is this something that's going to be really important that I need to demonstrate or show or have as part of the process? I would just ask them.
I see. We have another question about irrelevant experience in the past.
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you started off your early days, you worked at McDonald's, that may or may not be important to what you're doing, but it might be, like, depending on how many years of experience you have. I always think that somebody that's worked at some, like, in the service industry, and it's funny, more and more when I talk to our director of talent acquisition, she said to me that more and more folks are looking for people that have actually had customer service experience. So as much as I laugh about McDonald's, you've actually had that opportunity where you've actually interacted with people. So it doesn't matter kind of what that is, depending on how long you're in career. If you're 30 years and you're going back to you were 18 years old working at McDonald's, probably not relevant, right? So I'd be looking at that. But if you're really starting out and McDonald's was one of the things that was really important, put it on there, because it's service industry. It shows you can work with others. It shows that you can work with customers in a really high, fast-paced environment, right? And a lot of organizations want to know what can you create in short periods of time. They're not looking for 2-3 year projects. I mean, they are, but in some cases, how can you move fast in some of the things that you're doing?
Thank you.
So that's why I say about the irrelevant experience. But something that you've done, I cut grass. I cut grass on the weekends for extra money. Probably not relevant, right? Keep that out. But we all have side jobs, right? But there may be one that is relevant. Is while I was going to school, I was building websites. That was really important for me to get to know a certain type of technology. That could be included, but you have to know your audience too, right?
Yeah. Oh, we have so many good questions here. Do we need to take a short break before we continue?
I'm okay. I'm okay unless the group needs to.
Sure. Then I'll just I find this formatting one, like does formatting matters?
So does the formatting matter on those systems when they're extracted from or submitted resume? Yeah, that's really what I'm getting at. The formatting does matter, and that's why I'm saying have a plain resume. Depending what you get, you'll know when you have to dump if you just upload your resume and they take it as is, a lot of times there's some systems that will just format it and take stuff out. But I think that's, again, what the talent acquisition director I talked to said is have it, because you don't know what's going to spit out on the other side. Some organizations I've worked for, if you've got a 2-column, it spits out as a 2-column, right? But you don't know what that looks like until you actually get inside that system and start putting your resume in. Some is just a quick upload, and you just put it in there, and it will do the work in the system itself. A lot of times you don't know.
Another question about format is font size. You suggest? Yeah,
and I would say a lot more people are reading wearing these things these days, right? They've got and they're looking at screens all day. So I think anywhere from I've seen 10, anywhere from 10 to 12. I wouldn't, unless it's a title heading, I wouldn't go any higher than 14 ever. But I would try and stick, that's headings that would be your max. I would say try and stay 11, 12 font size.
11, 12, 10 is too small.
10's too small, yeah. I mean, sometimes it's necessary if you're really trying to fit everything in, but then again, you can't just have some areas that are 10, some 11, some 12, right? So it's a formatting, and then you have to ask yourself, have I just put too much in this resume? Let me make it more simple, right?
Like 1 page or 2 page?
That's a good question. Yeah, mine is 3 pages, but that I've been in the HR industry for a long time, so it all depends. Some people I've had who are PhDs that have done 30 pages, and they're trying to apply for a job in say tech or a private organization. Like, unless you're going to academia, nobody wants to look at a 30-page resume. Keep it to like 1 to 3 pages max. And some people are going to say, oh, you can't go over 2. I've got 3. Have I been hired for jobs? Do I get interviews? Yes. So it all depends, but it depends on your experience, right? It depends what's your experience. If you've got a really hefty experience, you want to showcase it. I think at some point you have to also say, what's the cutoff? And maybe you just highlight that you've worked for an organization, what your title was, but you don't put any accomplishments, but have those accomplishments ready if they ask you in the interview.
I see. It's a really great answer. Thank you.
You're welcome. There's one here about government jobs. I'm curious about that one. If we want to apply for government jobs, do you have any suggestions? You know what? I think federal and provincial government, even local government, they take on so many projects, especially tech projects. Like in our organization, if we look at all our support departments, our IT department is probably 100 people above most of the other support departments. So it's a lot more. So I would say working in the government's a great place, especially if you're starting out. Government usually is very open to taking people that are quite new, like also people who are coming out of college, or you're working in and I'm missing the name of it, when you're working and you've got you can do as part of your school and work kind of that work experience. They're really open to taking people, and working in the government, they got really super interesting projects that you can work on. So I think whether it's the city that you're looking for, if it's, I'm just going to say City of Vancouver, if it's if it's the provincial government, if it's the federal government, there's lots of opportunities. You could work for CBSA, right? The Canadian Border and Canadian Border. They've got lots, like all kind of airport authorities, lots of great, interesting jobs out there. Do they always pay high? No, not all of them. But you're going to get experience. You're probably going to get more experience than you can if you're just working in some other organization. So it's also a good place. So I'm putting a plug in because I've worked in local government and provincial government.
That's really great experience, because I don't know many people who work for government. So that's very interesting to know and good to have. I think we're getting very close to the end of the session. I'm gonna just pick 1 or 2 questions, and we can wrap up with some good general suggestion. Is that okay? I saw one question about for new grad, should they they don't have many experience, should they focus more on like how should they best write their resume? Focus more on project, or just for new grad and they don't have much experience, how should they best showcase themselves?
Yeah, that's good. I was missing the word I was thinking about. If you're working in a co-op program, so if you're at a university or college that has a co-op program, there's always good. I was actually just interviewing somebody who's working at a university looking to come into my team, and they work in the co-op program. They said a lot of those co-op students get placed within organizations that they've got a co-op for, right? So, I think we're kind of talking post that. But if you've got co-op experience, or you've got experience, or you've done, I would highlight whatever relevant experience that you've actually done. You gotta set yourself apart too. In a lot of cases, they're already going to know that you haven't been in the industry very long. But what you're going to have that's going to set you apart is you probably have the most knowledge when it comes to that. Experience is really critical though, and I think that's why I really like these co-ops, especially for tech folks, is because they get to go in there, they get to work in these organizations, and sometimes it's not that long, but the experience, sometimes you get like this much experience because you're working a lot of different places. But if you don't have a lot of experience, you really just need to sell yourself on who you are as a person, what you have done, what the projects are, how you've learned through it, and what some of the opportunities that you've worked through as well. So what are the things? Mistakes are always a good thing. People that talk about, hey, I made a mistake, but this is what I learned, the outcome of it, it's always brilliant. Maybe you don't put in your resume, but you put in when you're having the interview. Also shows your humility as a person and your humbleness that you can work through it. And the biggest thing is we all have to make mistakes. If you haven't made a mistake, then you haven't learned.
Yeah, great suggestion. Thank you so much. Things we're almost get very into the session. I'm wondering, do you have anything you want to share? Any suggestions for our audience that they're looking for a job, they're looking for have a good resume, they're looking for bypass this screening, like potentially passing this resume screening process from a recruiter perspective? Anything you want to share for our audience?
There's probably a lot. I think I've smattered a lot of the stuff within what we've talked about already. But you know what? At the end of the day, where it's really going to make a difference, as much as you put into your resume or your cover letter, talk about your relevant experience. And, I love that resume that was up there that really highlighted the percentage points, how you've increased or how have you decreased cost. But the piece that really is very hard to describe a lot of times is, who are you as a person? How do you work? What are your competencies specifically? And what makes you a great team player? What makes you different than someone else is really critical. The only time you really somebody gets to know who you are is when they actually get to the interview and they actually get to learn more about you, right? And then sometimes that's even hard because we're always super nervous when we get to the interview, right? Most interviews that I do at my organization are all panel based, so you're not just one-on-one in some cases. So it's like, oh, that's a bit more. So be really comfortable for the next steps past the resume and the cover letter. Again, I also said when you're looking at that job description the employer has posted, make sure you're really looking at it and you haven't missed anything that's on there. Some organizations are very detailed focused. If you've missed something and you haven't put in your resume or cover letter, you haven't caught it in there, then they're gonna there's a potential they may say that this person doesn't have that relevant experience. So, just really be cautious that everything's lining up.
Thank you.
And good luck to everyone. I've seen a lot of things. There's, people coming from foreign countries, people internally, people doing career changes. There's lots of great opportunity out there. And don't be shy also to work at small organizations or organizations that you may not see. Like, I see Microsoft, Google, Meta, all those great logos. Don't always have to start there. I think that's something that we always want to attain to, but the small organizations also give you such broad experience that you can get will help you in your career journey.
Yeah. I started my career journey from startup and definitely learned a lot at working a small team, building a project end to end, experience different technology. At that time, I was working on a VR like website. So quite cool. So I think, yeah, no matter it's big tech or small tech or any type of company, you get you can get different unique learning experience, and you can decide which one you like and which one is the best fit for you.
Yeah, be curious for sure. Be curious what's out there.
And just thank you so much. I'm looking at the chat, probably no more chat. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming, and thank you so much for coming to this and answering so many questions and give your insight from recruiter perspective and sharing so many good suggestions. I really, really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, Annie, for hosting this. I think it's great for all the people that are able to join and listen, and I appreciate people taking their time on a Saturday morning or afternoon or evening, wherever people are calling in from. It's a great opportunity to connect. And again, these are the opportunities for folks out there to just learn more about themselves, learn about others. And so, yeah, good luck to everyone.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and thank you for coming to the session. I really appreciate it. And I will keep hosting event like this every week. So next week, I'm probably going to talk about linking presence, and we'll have more live schedule. And you can check my calendar. And I hope to stay connected with you guys on linking and stay connected with you guys on YouTube Live next week. Thank you so much, everyone. If you have any question, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. And if you want to connect with our guest today, I will share his information with your permission. And yeah, thank you so much. And have a good. It's noontime at Vancouver. I'm not sure what time at your time zone, but have a good rest of your day. Have a good evening. Good morning. Thank you, everyone, for tuning. I really appreciate it. Good luck on your journey, and hope we stay connected. And see you next week. Bye.